Hello YouTube, my name is Epic Big Bird and I am coming to you today with a Rome 2 online multiplayer battle, and I am super excited to show it to you today. I've chosen Rome and my ally has chosen Parthia. I hope you got to get a good view of each other, of our armies, because we are going to get right into this battle. I will briefly explain my deployment real quick. So you can see here, sorry about that, guys. I have kind of deployed in somewhat of what I like to call a triplex axis formation. My front line is going to be 4 sets of armored legionnaires. Behind them are going to be 3 sets of velites with 2 experience chevrons. And then behind them we're going to have 4 sets of evocati cohort, again a very heavy melee infantry. And then holding up the rear is going to be 3 sets of auxiliary spear infantry, which are heavy spear infantry, and then I have 2 auxiliary cav, which are heavy melee cav, to hold the flanks along with my legatus. Now I like to call this like more of a triplex axis formation because it kind of incorporates that idea, except the velites are switched around with the first line of infantry, and I do that because velites, their javelins are pretty valuable and we don't want them getting slaughtered by these skirmisher units where they will be outranged anyways. So you can see here my opponent has given me the hill pretty much. He's positioning himself in a position for me to advance on the hill. He's also leaving his archers in a position to fire into my armored legionnaires as they advance, which is a good move. However, you see he pulls back here, which is interesting to me. I thought it would have been much smarter to leave his archers there to fire on my legionnaires as they advance, but he pulls back, as you can see. So I'm going to send my cav up to the left flank to do some scouting, make sure I can meet any frontal cav charges that he'd try to throw. And you can also see there I'm now advancing my front line of legionnaires to the crest of this hill, so we can secure it and provide favorable engagements for my legionnaires when that time comes. You see he's focus firing his archers again, and that's doing quite a lot of damage to my legionnaires as they advance. So over here though, we thankfully spot an ambush that he had planned, which is pretty impressive ambush actually. If my cav hadn't crested that hill, I would have never seen them, and that now explains why he had pulled away from the hill like he did, and like he still is. He wanted to divert my attention towards his army and towards the hill and present my front towards him, so the rear would be facing these noble cav. Very intelligent move, but unfortunately I did spot it for that split second. So I'm going to send my spears to the rear to ward off those cav. I'm just going to fast forward real quick for a little bit. You can see them over there. He's retreated them, and at the sight of all those units he's going to pull them back towards his infantry line. See, he's still firing on my legionnaires here. They are taking a beating in this archer fire, but there's nothing much we can really do at this point. We are going to go into Testudo right about now. Yep. But this unit got cut down about 40 men, which is pretty decent losses, just with archer fire. So basically our strategy is right now is to just let these archers unload on us and hope that, you know, basically cut our losses on the casualties. We have nothing to counter those archers. So we're pretty much just going to have to prevent them from killing as many of my troops, which would be how we would accomplish this, is by forcing them to fire on our most armored and our units in Testudo. You can see here he's not going to have any of that though, and as soon as I went into Testudo, he shifted his line, and then he's now advancing. He's going to start targeting my velites, which is a very smart decision because they're unarmored and they're very susceptible to missile fire. So we'll just take a look at the overhead real quick. We can see what how this is looking. So he has a solid line of 5 Parthian light archers, or Persian light archers, excuse me. And then behind him he's got 5 Parthian swordsmen, which is actually a pretty solid sword unit. I underestimated them going into this battle, but they're pretty decent. They've got 65 armor, about, you know, mid-30s attack, so not too bad. And then he's got some Eastern Javelin behind him, and then he has 2 sets of Eastern Cataphracts, a Royal Cataphrax, and 3 Noble Blood Cav. So he fielded a pretty decent army, if I do say so myself. So you can see right here, I decided to mobilize my reserve set of Evocati and extend my line. I'm doing this to force his cav back, and I see that he's advancing with his Persian Light Archers. I kind of want him to step forward, and then I would use these Evocati to collapse on his left flank. You can see here I ward off his cav though, so I stay tight to my Legionnaires. And you can see he's done quite a good amount of damage on one of my Velites units. He's dropped this one down to half strength. So you see here he's shifting his units. I'm being aware of his Eastern Cataphracts because these units are pretty isolated, and from a Cataphrax charge they could be vulnerable. You can see here he does send them forward here, and I'm going to respond with my spears and my javelins. But he turns back quickly. He sees my spears are advancing, so he's not too interested in a fight. I'm going to go into fast forward a little bit again here, guys, because this is going to be a little bit more maneuvering. So you can see here he's stepping forward again with his archers. And again, he's going to be targeting my Velites because they're unarmored, and he's going to be doing the most damage. So I decided to prevent that, I'm going to pull them behind the hill, break the line of sight, and then they won't be able to fire on them because they don't know where they'll be. At the same time, I'm pulling back my Legionnaires, and again, this unit on my right flank is getting destroyed by these archers. They're down to about half strength now, like a little less now after that volley. So we're going to get them back into Testudo, and we're sitting pretty nice on a hill now. So, you know, at this point we're going to just wait till his archers are done firing at us, and then we'll come off our hill and hopefully kill him. So we're just going to go back into fast forward. He's going to fire on my spear unit now, which is again a good decision, smarter than firing on my armored legionnaires. And you can see I also pulled my cav back behind this hill, and that forced him to mobilize 2 of them to the left. He must have thought that I was going to try and flank his cav units, so he sent a heavy set of Eastern Cataphracts and his Noble Bloods over there to intercept them. But lo and behold, you see I actually shifted them to the other side, and I was more interested in these Eastern Cataphracts on his right flank. And I liked that because now that caused his horses to spend some exertion points, and these Eastern Cataphracts, since they're so heavily armored, they should wear out pretty quickly. You see again he's shifting to try and get on the flank of my units. So this is a pretty good tactical view right here. You can see he's actually positioning me pretty well, if I do say so myself, other than the fact that we have the hill. You can see he's got a pretty nice envelope with some pretty heavy cav to my rear and some archers to my flank. I'm going to try and prevent that. I'm going to try and ward off his archers with my spear units right now. He's getting pretty good flank shots into my Velites still. And you know, honestly, it probably would have been smarter to advance with my armored legionnaires, but I was afraid that his Parthian swordsmen would have stepped up to the fight, which honestly they probably should have against my auxiliary spears too, but I really just wanted to ward off those archers, and thankfully it worked with my spear units. Over here you can see he decides to charge in with his cavalry over here into my infantry units. I actually did respond, and I got charge orders off just before he careened into my Evocati. But honestly, if I do say so myself, this probably wasn't the smartest decision on his part. He probably got a little anxious and was looking for a cavalry engagement, because these Evocati cohort are a very supportable position. Like, they have other infantry units all around them. We're gonna get a pretty nice envelop on this noble blood right now. Yeah, so our infantry units are actually chewing up his cav pretty good. However, this is causing us to devote quite a large amount of our infantry body to this fight. You can see here we threw our auxiliary cav into his noble blood and his eastern cataphracts to prevent them from joining the fight here, and now we're going to try and support that this engagement with our velites here. You can see we routed one of his noble blood cav, but we're going to pursue because it might come back from routing. We don't want that to happen. Over here we get a charge into his royal cataphracts, and we get about 10 of them on the charge. We're pulling back our spears to be able to support the main infantry body, and our general also took a pretty big archer volley there, and that hurt pretty bad. Okay. So you can see here we're managing to finish off this noble blood cav, which still has 30 horses. That's why I pursued it. But unfortunately, it is pulling away pretty healthy Evocati cohort units, 2 of them at least. And now those 2 Evocati cohort are going to have to deal with these noble blood calves. Over here, some eastern cataphracts are joining the fight. I'm going to counter that with my velites and by throwing these armored legionnaires into the fight as well. I should have used these auxiliary infantry. I don't know why I didn't. But, oh well, these guys are going to join the fight, so that's good. These auxiliary infantry are going to be used to defend his cataphracts. However, I was very late in responding there. You can see he gets a pretty nice charge into my velites, and I believe he routs them. Oh, no, he doesn't. But he stomps over those velites, gets about 50 or 40 kills right there. So, you know, the cav fight though is pretty much, it's going to be wrapped up. We're losing right now because we're fighting cataphracts, but we have plenty of Evocati cohort and javelins to finish that fight off. Now the main issue is we need to make sure that we defend against the swordsman and make sure that we get favorable engagements in his swordsman. And right now that's happening. We're not getting a favorable engagement here because we have spear auxiliary against his Parthian swords. But we're going to reinforce that unit with an armored legionnaire, and it should do the job pretty good. Over here we have an armored legionnaire that's down to about a quarter strength engaging his Parthian sword, so that's going to be dangerous. And down here we have an armored legionnaire engaging a Parthian sword down here, which is a little out there, but what we can't do anything really about that right now. And over here we're finally getting a break. Over here our 2 Evocati cohort are engaged with 2 noble blood cav and his general, and they're actually, I just issued use the whip, and they're actually doing pretty decent against these horse units, surprisingly. There he tries to disengage, and that pretty much routs him, and there his general is riding off. If you notice, his archers have ceased fire, so I believe he's out of ammo at this point. He tries to get a flank attack on my armored legionnaires here, but I'm going to countercharge with another set of armored legionnaires, and then reinforce with these 2 Evocati cohorts. You can see here his general is wheeling up for what looks like a pretty decent hammer and anvil strike. I'm going to counter that with my auxiliary spears that I have in the area. You can see he wheels off, and he really doesn't have too much to go. He has positions where he could strike here, but my spears are in close proximity, and he does have a position here that's pretty vulnerable. And you can see the way he's riding, that's what looks like he's going to do. He's going to pull away my Evocati from that fight with his other eastern cataphracts. I probably should have left them for up racing, but that's okay. You can see his general is going to get a pretty nice charge in on my legionnaires there, and that almost routs these guys. But down here we pinned his eastern cataphracts in between these auxiliary spears that were on the hill, and they're not going to last very much longer. But at this point my velites are out of the fight. He routed them with what's left of his archers. You can see he's still got about at least 3 units firing, so he still has a pretty decent amount of archer fire. I'm going to decide to sacrifice this Evocati cohort, and I'm going to throw them at these Persian light archers. I know that they're going to be cut down by this archer fire, but basically my thinking was that these 5 units are now going to be focus firing this one Evocati unit. Not only does it catch 1 or 2 Persian light archers and completely annihilates them. But every second that these archers aren't firing on the flanks of my own men engaged in fights like this, where they're fighting royal cataphracts and Parthian swords, is another minute that my legionnaires are alive and stabbing his Parthian swords. So I think that was a good trade-off, really, in my opinion. You can see here that gave me the time to pretty much wrap up. I routed his general over here, and these Parthian swords shouldn't hold too much longer. So yeah, but you can pretty much see that that's pretty much the fight. It was a pretty messy one, if I do say so myself. The units that I brought to counter his cavalry ended up not being used very much for his cavalry. I mean, my auxiliary infantry did get into the fight, and that is the decisive factor in these fights, was probably my auxiliary spears. But you know, I had to use pretty much my Evocati force to ward off his noble bloods, and I really would have liked to use my my auxiliary spears, but that's okay, because my armored legionnaires pretty much had it in them to hold these Parthian swords at bay and beat them, as you can see. So yep, once these Parthian swords are out, that's pretty much going to be the battle. And we can take a look at unit statistics. It was a pretty bloody battle, as you can see. There were a lot of trade-offs. It was a good battle. I give it to my opponent. You can see here the last of the Parthian swords are out, and these javelin are going to get cut down. And there we go, as a chain route. Alright guys, well thank you so much for watching my video. I really hope you learned something strategic that you could possibly incorporate into your own armies. Please rate, comment, and subscribe if you like what you've seen here today. I would love to continue to make videos. I have pretty much everything I need now. So yeah, I would hope to see you guys all again in the future. Please stay safe. Epic Big Bird out.